Well, let's see. We have a message this morning. That message is entitled Passion and Detachment. The theme for this month is the path to enlightenment. And I wanted to share with you some of the definitions that I came up with, they resonated with me anyway, on just what is enlightenment. They are being awake, what the Buddha had shared. Knowing everything is an expression of the divine. To see the whole universe and to have total freedom to connect with anything and everything. Do you feel the underlying tone in all of that? It's oneness, it's wholeness. Nothing is excluded. It's all inclusive. Everything that comes into existence, that comes into our experience, is good, is God, is love, is joy, is peace. Are all of those qualities that our human self tries to come up with to label the infinite. That is unlabelable, really. And so I wanted us to, this morning, be aware of the magnitude that being enlightened brings with it. All of us are capable. All of us will, at one point or another, experience that enlightenment. Do you believe that? Do you think that's true? Do you think enlightenment is for everyone, every soul? You got to think in the infinite. And that's where the source thinks. That's where the source lives. I wanted to let you know that I just came back from Unity Village back in Kansas City. I was at the Anton Conference, which is the affiliated New Thought Network. That's our organization that supports our independent religious science church. And the theme for the conference was Exuberance, a celebration of the sacred through beloved community. Every year they have a certain theme for the conference, and usually how they come up with it is they go into visioning. And the conference team, there's usually about, 5 or 6 people. I was on it for a couple years. And you go into visioning, and this is what comes out. And exuberance was the word that came up. And I wanted to show you the program that they came up with, this beautiful program. Whoops. And so I'm flipping through it, and it's telling you the conference and who's speaking when. It gives you all of the different things that are happening each day and so forth. And I'm flipping through it, and they've got these little quotes in here, these little boxes of quotes. And I glanced down, and I went, that's my name. Reverend Gabe Beauregard. What does it say up above it? Beloved community is a soul support that uplifts us all. It is a feeling of sweet connection that puts a smile on the face and warmth in the heart. And then there's other quotes from Dr. Angeli Pizzello and Dr. John Carn and other people. I'm thinking, where did they get that from? I didn't even remember writing this. So I went up to the gal that did the program and asked her, Uta Marie is her name. You're going to be hearing more about her because I won her in the auction. Anyway, Uta Marie does a fabulous workshop on the Aramaic version of the Lord's Prayer, and she can speak it in Aramaic. And so I paid for her to come to San Diego to our church to do a workshop and a Sunday lesson on that coming up this next year sometime. But so anyway, Uta Marie did the program, and I said, where did you get this? She said, well, remember, we sent this little email out to everybody saying our theme this year is beloved community, and we wanted to get everybody's take on what is beloved community to you. And I vaguely remembered thinking, oh yeah, I got that email. And I just went, just zip something up, and there you go, it's done. I honestly didn't even remember I'd done it. But it was wonderful because I think that all of us connect with that definition of what is beloved community. We feel it here. We know it here. We have it here. And so to have it at our Anton conferences is just tremendous. There's certain people that you run into every year, you look forward to seeing. And if they're not there, you miss them. You say, my gosh, where was so-and-so this year, and where was so-and-so? And so I thought it would behoove all of us to just give you some information as to what I experienced at that conference, because you all paid for me to go. So I wanted to let you know some of the takeaways that I had from it. The first presenter was Dr. Michelle Whittington. And many of you, if you don't know who she is personally, she is the minister of the Phoenix Church, an independent religious science church in Phoenix. And she was the one that created the program that we did this last year on prosperity. It was her program that I, again, won at the auction last year as well. And so anyway, she gave the talk to just the ministers. And what she presented was another generic version of what I had experienced when I went to her workshop that she did in Sedona back in January. It was a women's retreat, but she made it more encompassing to include, everyone. And she basically was just, again, reminding us of this. She called it your power place, your place of power, which is your very, very close to the second chakra. Down in your gut feeling. And to go to that, remember to go to that before you make any decision, if you have any questions, to check in with that knowing, that divine knowing, before you make any decision. And so that was a great presentation. Now, it was interesting because I don't know how many of you are aware, but her husband of 30 years passed away in May. And she was saying how that there have been many Lonnie, was his name, Lonnie sightings that she's experienced since his passing. He had a heart issue about 5 years ago and had major surgery. And, how many people do we know that have major heart surgery and boom, they're back like that? And he was, up until a few months, and then they realized that there was nothing they could do other than a heart transplant. And at that point, he made the conscious decision that I've been on this earth plane, I've had a great life, and I'm ready to travel on in my journey into the next path. So he did not want to go back to the hospital, did not want to take any other ways of trying to avoid, his meeting his maker. And so he did pass in May. One of the Lonnie sightings that she talked about, though, was that at one point she had been somewhere and she was sad. She was just sad, and she was driving back in the car and just sobbing. I miss you, I miss you, I miss you so much. And she said at that point a car came over and went in front of her, and the license plate read, "Miss you." Did you get God bumps? Yeah. And she told a couple other instances of things that she just knows that his spirit is here with her still. The next speaker that we had was Reverend Allie Benjamin. She's in Ogden, Utah. And she spoke about, and of course she's been on this program. This program has been set up for, many, many months. Allie was scheduled to be our guest, our keynote speaker that first night, and she shared that her 32-year-old son, who lives fairly close to her in Utah, she had gotten a call from his wife. It was 3 months ago, and said, something's wrong, can you come over? And Allie went over and discovered his body, that he had committed suicide. And for her to stand up there in front of over 100 people and share that personal experience and saying that it was an amazing experience to think that she was the vehicle to bring this soul into the world, and then was the first one there as he was exiting this life. But her talk revolved around the question, because trying to make sense out of all of this question she came up with is, what if this happened for me? I mean, so many times, we look at something that happens and say, why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to me? Right? And she turned it around and said, what if this happened for me? How can I look at that? How can I glean the gift that Spirit is giving me in this situation right now? What is it? Our Reverend Jerry Troyer, our wonderful, beautiful Jerry Troyer, is our assistant to Anton. He's an admin assistant. He was there running all around doing all these things, that the admin needs to do in these situations. And I ran into him, and I knew he's from San Diego. He's spoken at our church here fairly recently. And I knew that his partner, his husband, Jerry Collins, had issues with trying to come through the colon cancer. And we're calling it cancer at this point. Anyway, Jerry Collins was dealing with that, and I knew they had gone up to City of Hope to see what could be done. And I asked Jerry Troyer, well, whatever happened with that? And he said, they sent us home and said there's really nothing more that they knew that we could do, and we're just going to leave it up to the presence as to what happens next. And we started on Monday, and Tuesday he was running around doing all these things, because he runs our auction. Jerry Troyer is a fantastic auctioneer, and that's on the last day of the conference on Friday. Anyway, so then on Wednesday morning, Martha Creek, who is on the board of Anton, went up to the front. She was kind of our announcer. Martha said, Jerry Troyer and Jerry Collins, I didn't even know Jerry Collins was even at the conference, because he never had come out of the room. They are leaving this morning because it's evident that Jerry Collins needs to leave, needs to go home. And I had forgotten my water bottle or something. Anyway, so I ran out into the hall to back to the room to get my water bottle, and I ran into Jerry Troyer. And he gave me a hug, and he says, I'm leaving. We're leaving. I said, yeah, I know. Martha just told everybody. And I looked at him, and I knew. I looked at him, and I just said, Jerry, our Jerry's light is shining. It will always shine. They hurriedly got a plane and were making arrangements to get back to San Diego. They had a layover in Houston. Jerry Collins collapsed. They got him to the hospital, and he passed there in Houston. And he has family in Texas. I don't know what part of Texas, but Jerry Collins has family in Texas. And so we were told, the next day that, yes, he had made his transition. And if we're friends on Facebook, a lot of us are, in the organization. And Jerry Troyer was saying they were going to have some sort of memorial in December for him. So I thought that it was pretty interesting that this conference had so much energy around people transitioning. Around is what we talked about a few weeks ago, the expiration date that all of us have. And that is part of this life process. This life process doesn't begin and end with the birth of a little body or an old body on this earth plane or anything in between. We know that we have a soul that lives, that carries on. One of the other speakers that we had that was brilliant was actually the daughter of one of the ministers that has been a major participant in our organization, Carol Lawson. She's been a past president. Anyway, she was just thrilled to introduce her daughter, who has gotten into the Hindu tradition fairly heavily, and she's now changed her name from Linda to, I think it's Linda, to Ram Dass Kaur. So she introduced Ram Dass Kaur, and Ram Dass Kaur spoke to us about the 10 bodies that we have. Physical bodies, spiritual bodies, oversoul bodies, all of the bodies that are given us and that don't leave us. And so she was an amazing one to listen to recognize the wholeness and the overall inclusiveness that spirit is. She talked about the Shiva. Does anybody know who Shiva is? Shiva is the god of destruction. Again, interesting how these things were put into place. I mean, she made this talk up way before she knew of anybody's, leaving this earth plane that was going to be experienced in this conference. But she said, he dances to destroy limiting beliefs. And then she said, your soul's awareness has one direction, from dark to light to enlightenment. Everyone will arrive to enlightenment. Time is the only difference. One of the other keynote speakers that we had, our major keynote speaker, was Matthew Fox. And Matthew Fox had been a Catholic priest for years until, I don't know, I didn't really follow him, but somehow or another he got kicked out. I'm not sure what he did, but they no longer approved of him. And he has written many, many books. And he really took our theme of our conference to heart, because he really talked an awful lot about the exuberance of life. And what he highlighted, I took some, copious notes, and I want to just share with you some of the notes from Matthew Fox's talk. He said that the narcissism of our species is the one thing wrong with us. The narcissism of our species is the one thing wrong with us. We have forgotten the sense of sacred. The kingdom and queendom is here. I like that one. We're here to savor and share it. Silence is where God is born. Not all exuberance is red and orange. Some is cool and blue. Suffering and grieving has its place. Grieving helps release the creativity inside us. He said we should replace the word retirement with refinement and rewirement. So interesting. He again brings up this topic of grieving. In fact, the next day when we had our workshop with him, it was in a big room, big hotel room, and we got rid of all the chairs. And he said he's done this process many times. It's very, very helpful. The quote that he said about grieving helps us release creativity inside. He wanted all of us, we got down he said all sixes, because you've got your hands and your knees and your feet. You're down on the floor. And then you put your head, the crown of your forehead, on the floor. And you go to that place inside of you that grieves, that remembers, that knows a time when you were grieving, when something happened that was just so overwhelming. It was just, and you go to that gut place and you let out a sound, whatever sound that comes from you. And the reason you're doing it down on the ground and having your head down is that you hear it. It reverberates. You can hear yourself. And, it was gut-wrenching, so to speak, the sounds that came out in that hotel room with 100 people doing that. And then he said, once you do that, we did that for a few minutes, and he said, now quiet yourself a little bit and then just listen, be aware of the others in the room and their sounds. And he said, it's amazing when you let that out, when you let that go, how the the divine fills that with whatever it's going to fill it with. You know, how did this happen for me? And you go from there. Let's see what else. One of the fellows that just started attending the conference last year, Dr. J. Scott Neal. He has a church in Fremont, California, and he's well into his 80s, and he loves to talk and share, and if you are at any down point in time, he's there to tell you all these things. He had individual schooling with Fenwick Holmes, who was Ernest Holmes' older brother, and he's got this beautiful resonating voice. In fact, there's a movie that they did on Ernest Holmes' life, and he starred in it. So there's a movie that we could probably get and watch that J. Scott Neal did. But he loves to tell you all the different things that he's learned and all this. And you can see him if you pull him up, he's on YouTube, all his talks and everything. But he said to me, Angelo Pizzello. How many of you know who Angelo Pizzello is? Angelo Pizzello is the director, really the creator of Emerson Institute. Emerson Institute is the educational arm of Anton. In fact, when I was ordained in 2012, Angie was the one that came down to help with my ordination along with Marilyn Hall. And Marilyn and Angie helped create the affiliated New Thought movement, going on almost 30 years ago now. But Angie is just the sweetest man. He's always laughing. He's always just giggling, and and he always says yes. We don't care what you ask him. He says, "Of course, we can do that. Of course." He's can't come up with all these different ways that people can enhance their ministries by having Church Without Walls. He has instituted animal chaplaincies. He's instituted interfaith ministries. I mean, if anybody has a great idea, Angie will say yes to it. But I thought it was interesting that Jay told me, and he's known Angie for 40 years. He says, I think the way people communicate and associate and are drawn to Angelo Pizzello, is very similar to the way that people were drawn and associated and loved Ernest Holmes. And I thought that was interesting. I don't know if Angie even recognizes that connection, but Jay knows them both, knew them both, and said, I can see how Angelo Pizzello has, the way his demeanor is, how he draws people to him, much like Ernest Holmes did. And one of the things that was, somebody asked me, what's the best thing about the conference? The best thing about the conference is the connection, is that beloved community, is running into the folks and finding out what's new with you, what have you been doing, and knowing the new people. I mean, it was fabulous. We picked up from the airport, and they have a shuttle that you call in, and there were two other people that were coming into the conference, because you land in Kansas City Airport, but Unity Village is about, half hour, 45-minute drive. And so on that drive, I met a gal I'd never met before. She's from Milwaukee. Her name was Brenda. And I ended up going out to dinner with she and her group from Milwaukee that first night. And then the other person in the shuttle with me was Janine Burns, who is from Long Island. And she's fabulous. She's just a wonderful, wonderful gal. Funny, I had a good conversation with her because she's a boatsman. I mean, she has a boat. She's driven a boat for years and years and years. And she's taking some sort of a seamanship course, and she's learning about locks. And she had never thought about what a lock was or why they needed them or anything like that. And so, of course, I've been to Panama Canal, and I've been to just recently, the Columbia River that comes into the ocean up there in the Pacific, and they have locks. There's these things that open up, she says, well, what do you need them for? I said, because you've got different elevations of the water. And she goes, well, how could that be? And then somebody ran into somebody else that tried to explain a little bit more. I said, well, what did they do before locks? Well, they had to get out and walk, or do all the way around the continent, so that it, instead of going across Panama. Anyway, so it was fabulous to meet new people, to connect with the old folks that you've known for years and years. I thought it was interesting because this gal Brenda, just retired. Went into refinement, I think it is. And she had a job at an elementary school for 25 years as the school secretary. And, it was interesting because I sat next to her at dinner and we chatted and chatted and chatted, and I'm thinking, there's certain people that, they have a certain job, and I'm thinking of Sheila, and I'm thinking of Mike, and I'm thinking of these people that have this type of job that I just so emulate with that type of a personality. And it's great, to meet new people. So next year, I'm putting my sales pitch in now, I would like to have some of my folks come with me. It's going to be October 1st through the 4th. It's a shorter period of time, so they're not, you don't have to go on a Sunday, so your ministers aren't going to miss a Sunday. But October 1st through the 4th, it's Unity Village. It's fabulous. The conference, I think, itself is $250, and then if you stay in the hotel, which I would absolutely highly recommend, because everything's there, and then you have your meals. All the meals are provided. I think it was it? Totally. I think it was a little over $1,000, and then you got to fly yourself, to and from. But put it on your calendar. Let's put that in your awareness to come with me to Unity Village. I tell you, it was started by the Fillmores, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, over 100 years ago. And they have a tower, a prayer tower, that has been in constant prayer 24/7, 7 days a week. Every hour, there are at least 2 people that are up in this tower in the chapel praying. They're half-hour stints. And we are the only other organization that they have ever let go into that sanctum of praying in that beautiful chapel. So we got to sign up, and I did it last year, and I did it this year, so you could go into the chapel and have that prayer. Because if you send a prayer to the Unity prayer people, they take that prayer, every single one of them, and put them in the chapel. They have these doors that are like little windows, and they fill them with all the requests. And then if it's digitally, they put them on CD. They put the CDs inside the chapel. So they're praying 1 month, 30 days, on every prayer that's put in there. And it's just amazing, the power, the feeling, the spiritual oomph that you get just from the grounds is phenomenal. And then they have this beautiful walk. I took the actual about a 3-mile walk. That's a loop, nature trail that goes by a lake, and beautiful. Just a beautiful, beautiful experience. One of the other fun things was that at the end of one of the evenings, I went out to get some more water. They've made it so it's all green. The whole complex is totally green, and they've changed their water so that it's drinkable off the tap. So I went. But they had these jugs where they put on cucumber and they put in lemon, in the little dispenser. So I was going out there one evening after everything had finalized, and I thought I was just going to fill up my water bottle. And then there was it's like the round table. There was a round table about, 8 or 9 people, and they had a bag of popcorn out in the middle. Because in the morning you get a continental breakfast. And so they have like area there, like a little dining area that you could sit in. And so we were there, whole people, I thought, oh, this looks kind of cool. So I joined that little circle, and we were talking about this and that. Allie Benjamin's husband, Michael, is I don't think he's a gemologist, but he deals in precious gems. That's what his job is. And he told me not to get my Buddha appraised. He said, I showed him a picture of my Buddha, my jade Buddha that I bought, and he said, if you love it, that's wonderful, but don't get it appraised. I guess there's a thing called a jade, and a jade is really the only thing that is real jade. And if they didn't sell it to you as a jade, it's a beautiful piece of some kind of stone that's been treated and such. But I said, okay, whatever. He says, but as long as you love it, that's all that matters. That's all that matters. But and it was so cool, and he loves to talk. Oh my gosh, as much as Jay Scott loves to talk. Anyway, he loves to talk, and he was talking about the fact that his wife Allie is from England, and literally her mother was a Olympian champion. 1948, she set the world's record for the longest long jump, 22 feet. Allie's mother jumped the long jump in 1948, and the record wasn't broken until just a few years ago. In any event, he's talking about wanting to go to London, going to England, and doing, like little tours, because he wants to do this. And then he said, and then also I want a second one. We're going to go over to Scotland and go to Finehorn. Do you know what I'm talking about there? We're talking about Eileen Katie's, the Finehorn. He wants to take a group of us there on a sojourn. Okay, we're gonna have some people. Amazing. It's so fun to see what happens when you get with a group of people, and the synergy, the energy that happens by just one person saying, oh, I'd like this. Oh, I'd like that. That would be fun. Let's do it. So we're going to go over to England, we're going to go to Scotland, and we're going to check it out. So I probably really should get back to the topic of today's lesson, which is passion and detachment. And if you listen with your heart and your soul, I think that's really what I've been talking about, is the passion, the exuberance that we have for life, and then letting life take us on the ride. When we get on this ride, we have our intentions, we set our intentions, we speak our word. We teach there is one power and one presence, all that is, and that we are it in expression. We are part of it. It lives through us, and it needs and it wants us to ask, as our song this morning said. It wants us to speak what it is that I want in life. And then the law, the impersonal law, responds to us. Love points the way, and law makes the way possible. That's one of the icons of our teaching. So I wanted to share with you one of the readings from our Science of Mind. By the way, in October every year, the Science of Mind magazine, the daily readings are all from Ernest Holmes. And so this year they've set several things that he wrote. Each day it's a different one. And I wanted to share with you this one because it made such a difference for me. I mean, I really, how sometimes when we talk about these theories and ideas, well, how does that really work? What does that really mean? And this made so much sense to me that I'm hoping that you'll connect with this as well. It says, transcending previous conditions. Perhaps everything that frightens us is, in its deepest essence, something helpless that wants our love. When we reverse the cause, that is, think and act in a different way, then we have changed the flow of the law. It is still the same law, but we have changed its flow so that instead of limiting us and punishing us, it frees and blesses us. It is still the law, but we have changed our attitude toward it. What if this happened for me? We might throw a ball at a window, and if nothing stopped it, it would break the glass. Here is the law in motion. But if someone catches the ball before it reaches the window, the glass will not be broken. The flow of life will be changed. That is all. So can we, no matter what has happened in the past, so transcend that old experience that it will no longer have any effect upon us? So if we have attracted something that is not the best to keep, we will remember that we do not have to keep it. It was the best that we knew at the time, and so was good as far as it went, but now we know more and we can do better. As law works without variation, so does the law of attraction work the same way. All that we have to do is to drop the undesired thing from our thought, forgive ourselves, and start anew. We must never even think of it again. Let go of it once and for all. Our various experiences will teach us more and more to try to mold all of our thoughts and desires so that they will be in line with the fundamental purpose of the great mind, capitalized, the expression of that which is perfect. And the affirmation is, I believe that everything necessary to the fulfillment of my every good desire is now in full operation. That reading I just gave you is from The Creative Mind and Success, written in 1919 by Ernest Holmes. The law is in motion. We can throw the ball, but if somebody's there to catch it, it's not going to break the window. We have within us the ability, the duty, really, to see how much we can express this infinite self that we are. And I believe that it's one of happiness, it's one of joy, it's one of exuberance. So I want us to go out this week and be exuberant, no matter what. Feel that joy, feel that love. And if it's something that seems less than, know that it just needs a little more love. And that you can do it. That it's calling you to bring forth more of that love that is inexhaustible within us. Meet new friends. Say hello to the old ones. In your community, in your sphere of influence. Take a look at that. Remember how sacred this beloved community is. Invite your friends to come to church, to be a part of this sacred community. We shouldn't just keep it for ourselves. So think about your passion and your detachment on your road to enlightenment in this coming week. Namaste.